Hi everyone, it's Dave Ghoul, and today I bring you guys a new podcast with Simple Weeb again. Say something, Simple Weeb, please.
Hello, I'm here again. I don't know if you remember me or if you haven't watched the last podcast. I'm Simple Weeb. I have a YouTube channel, and I am friends with Dave Ghoul. So yeah.
Yeah, so we decided to make another podcast since it was moderately successful. 22 views, a lot of you guys really showed your support, which I'm very thankful of. And so in this podcast, I decided not only to bring Simple Weeb back, but also a very special guest, an old friend of mine. Uh, you want to present yourself, my friend?
Of course, of course. So, hey guys, I'm Spark, and as you might already know, we're here to talk about several stuff, like Erased, and I'm excited to talk about that and some other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about what we were going to discuss in this podcast. Erased is an anime that I actually recommended Spark, and Spark, if I remember correctly, recommended Simple Weeb. I think that was it, right? Simple Weeb.
Yeah, exactly. It was one of the first animes I've ever seen, actually. Like besides the anime you see on TV when you're a child and you don't know what anime is.
Yeah.
I'm proud of that.
Um,
Recommending an anime to Simple Whip, but yeah.
it's a show that the three of us, really hold dear. I think. Interestingly enough, it is a show that not everyone is a fan of, which I don't understand, and that's why we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna defend it a little bit, and talk about the pros, also the cons, because there are cons that I know that I can understand why some people there are certain aspects of the show that they don't like, but yeah, it's an anime that I've been wanting to talk here on the channel, and we're gonna talk about it. We're also gonna talk about other stuff that I think you guys are gonna enjoy us listening to. So yeah, let's go right into it. Let's talk a little bit about Erased, shall we? So who wants to start by sharing their first experience with the show?
You can start Simple Whip.
Okay, I'll start then. If you give me the word, I shall take it. Well, I think like if anyone ever saw my anime list, I give a pretty high score to Erase. I give it a 9, which is really high. And although like I'll say it's a low 9, I'm still like a big fan of the series, especially because it was one of the first animes I've ever watched, and well, compared with, for example, Sword Art Online, I think it was way better. And like at the time, I only had to compare. The only shows I had to compare with Erase was Sword Art Online and Dragon Ball Super.
Not great
and Dragon
examples.
Ball and like mostly shonen. So like it was one of the first shows I've ever saw that was not shonen and it was like different in my opinion and really interesting. And I really liked the mystery because I really like mysteries. So I really liked it. What about you?
Exactly. Since Dave recommended this anime, I wasn't really sure that it was that good, but then I liked the idea about time traveling, and that really made me like I really wanted to watch it, and then I watched it in just a day. And I'm not really a big anime fan. I don't watch animes that fast, and I watched this quite fast, like in just a couple of hours, and that's almost no time
Record.
between the episodes. Yeah, but yeah, I think you probably know that Race is based on a character that is able to time travel.
And I think that will be important because we actually
exactly.
explain what the race was.
Exactly. I'll just make a brief
resume. I think it's better if we say that if you don't want to take any spoilers, skip to the next subject we were going to talk about. Because obviously we're going to spoil the series, we're going to discuss it.
We're going to spoil the shit out of it.
So yeah, I'm just going to start by saying that it's based on a character that is able to time travel to change some things about the past. It wants to change something that will make a big impact on the future. And as you might know, if you watched, it's about saving a girl from being killed, and that's really impactful because the relationship between them, like the main character and that girl, is really interesting, and that's what made the anime so good. Yeah, in my opinion. So yeah, this is a little bit of my opinion. If you want to continue. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, the relationship between Satoru, which is the main character,
Exactly.
and the girl, I think that's where the true heart of the show, of the story. For example, I've seen a lot of the criticisms of the show. Usually, of course, not everyone points to the same negative aspects, but one of the ones that I've seen the most was the whole the mystery aspect of the show. And I think in the grander scheme of things, it has mystery, but I don't think the mystery is the main. It's the center of the show, you know.
No, yeah.
Because the heart
the
of the
mystery is quite easy to solve too.
Exactly, because the mystery. I think the reason why I actually think it was purpose. There was a purpose to make the mystery simple, because do you really think that they will show that fast, the whole mystery? I don't know. I think that I think it was purposeful. I think there was a reason to show that the murderer was the, of course, spoilers, was the teacher. And um, yeah, but at the heart of this show, I think it's the relationship between this girl and Satoru. And I think the way that once the Satoru comes back from his encounter with the serial killer, once the serial killer is revealed, I think it becomes clear that the story is not about discovering who the serial killer is, but why Satoru went back in time, why that power came to him, and why the opportunity to save the girl came.
Yeah, because no one was actually close to the girl, like before he intervened in time, before he went back. Like I remember that the girl had no friends and no one. And it was Satoru that decided, well, let's be friends with this girl because I know that she will die in the future. And that just changed the whole course of the story of time. But yeah, and initially, it's weird because at the beginning of the story, he wasn't able to go back in time to all of the 18 years that he did.
Yeah.
When he went back in time, he was able to go back in time 3, 4, 5 seconds, nothing more, and he could just fix some things and make life easy for other people. But when he spoilers, see his mother getting killed, he was able to finally go back in time 18 years because the murder of his mother was actually was also the murder of the girl. At least that's what I understood. That part wasn't very specific, but I think the murderer was of the main character's mother was also the murderer of the girls in the future, in the past. So yeah, and he was able to go back in time and see what was going on at the time. We saw that Kaio's mother was bullying her child, and his boyfriend, her boyfriend didn't even cared about it, and would even join in the act of spanking her daughter.
Spanking.
Which,
I just
well, like she like the girl would end up in a very like bad state since she was like really mistreated by her mother and her father-in-law, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it was like that. Yeah. So yeah, and I really enjoyed. I don't know if it was only me, but I really enjoyed that the Satoru's adult mentality was
in a child's body.
Yeah. Because I think we all have ever dreamed of traveling to the past and seeing like our old friends and our old experiences.
And I think a lot of people have said many times in their heads, "Oh, I wish I could go back and change how I acted in there." And the main character actually had the opportunity to do what I think every human wants, because like every person has their regrets, and having a regret is the same thing as I wish I could go back and change the way I acted back there.
Yeah, that's what fascinated me
it was
so
quite
much.
realistic, yeah.
I think that was what I really liked about the show is that it's Satoru's whole arc. That's why I say at the center of this show is Satoru and his journey.
As a child, I think like one of the examples, it's when the main character sees all those candies in the teacher's car. If it was a child, the child would probably believe that the teacher had those candies because he needed to. But he, as an adult, he was able to like understand that that's not true. That he had the candy to convince children to go in his car, like most adults do, because children are like naive and adults are not.
Yeah.
And that's one of the one of the points we can see that the way that Satoru thinks is completely different from a child, although he technically is a child.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what makes it so fun, right? Because that's why he couldn't save the girl in the first place, because it has to do a child, and also something that is part of his arc, which was, it was very inside of his own bubble. He had his friends, but even he had his friends, but you could see that he didn't see them as real friends. He was a little bit isolated from them, and you see that
he didn't completely connect with his friends. He didn't care as much for his friends as probably he did with his mom, because he really cared about his mom.
Yeah, because when he grows up, I mean, when we see him for the first time in the story, we see that, I mean, he has nobody. He's working on a pizza place, but he doesn't really talk with the people he works with. The friends from
his friends from childhood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He doesn't talk with them.
Even when the girl that works with him starts like trying to connect with him and talk with him, he initially tries to back her off, and like he avoids talking with her. He doesn't want to have friends. He never did. and that's like social distancing that he had probably as a child cost him the girl. That's like one of the things, and we can see in the end he starts to connect more with people and starts to act different because he was able to understand that if he connected more with people as a child, he could have friends, and just like everyone, and having friends is not that bad.
Yeah, I mean that wasn't it why he got that time travel power in the first place. You know, it seems like, of course, this is an element of the story that doesn't get explained, and I don't think, you know, some people argue it should have been explained. I don't necessarily agree. I think yes, you could say it's poor storytelling, maybe, but you know, it's just an element that appears that is supernatural and you can't really explain. You know, I like to.
It's a necessary cog for the machine to work.
Yeah, I think I like to think that it's actually, you know, maybe God that gives him the opportunity to go back, and it's not just saving the girl, it's connecting with other people again, you know, to finally.
Yeah.
That's why his arc was so great, and I think the whole serial killer aspect of it, I think the point of catching the serial killer and sacrificing himself, because the beautiful
the motivation.
exactly the beautiful thing
For
about his sacrifice was that the amount of years that he lost, but he saved the girls, but he lost years of life. But those years of life in the original timeline, he basically he didn't really live them. You know, it was a hollow life, and so
exactly.
when he comes back, at least no longer he's alone. His friends are actually with him. You know, he has friends. He has his mother. A better relation with his mother because the poor mother had to take care of him while he was in a coma. Um, and I think that's exactly the point of Erased, is that it's this journey of this character to get back on his feet again, to find a purpose in life, because in the beginning of the story he himself states that he doesn't have a reason to live in the first place. He feels hollow. That's why his work is hollow as well. You know why? That's why his manga is to be desired, because there's not much emotion there. You know.
Yeah, because he was basically like a failed manga writer that worked in a pizzeria. His life was pretty like just
boring.
Yeah. Simple routine, like many people. But then his life completely changes with this power, and I think like he lost 18 years, but he won a lot. He also won a lot of things. He won friendships. He won new experience. He gained a lot through this. Okay, he lost 18 years, but it wasn't almost anything, because I think he is happier now. He lives now. He has a life. I think that's the best part. So we don't have to be sad about him. Well, we know that he isn't with the girl anymore, and I don't really understand that. Like once I saw a comment that the killer waited for like imagine when a killer waits 15 years or 18 years for you, but your girl doesn't. Like the killer waited for him, but his girl didn't wait for him. Like what the hell? Like how does that work? Like, and with that character, like they didn't have any relationship. I don't remember his name, but
what, the teacher?
No. The
guy that was stepped up to be.
That
Caio's husband.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like didn't have any relationship when they were kids. Like, and I don't understand why they.
Even if they had, like, it was completely erased by the relationship that the main
Ooh,
character
nice pun there.
had with Kaio.
Exactly. Just why did that happen? Like, it would be really cool if Kaio waited for him, because like the killer waited for him. Her mother waited for him because she was always there doing exercises, like physiotherapy, like some things, like it
To
was,
keep his body going, yeah.
yeah, exactly. They never gave up. Even the killer, like he would always visit him, and that's interesting. That's interesting to see.
I actually have a theory about that. So, let me point this out to you guys, and see if you guys agree. So, at first I thought this exact same thing, and after seeing some, online, some people criticizing the show, which of course one of the other things about that they criticize about the show is exactly what you pointed out, that Kaio didn't Satoru didn't end. I can't even speak. God damn it.
Didn't even.
He didn't even
with
stay with her.
Kaio.
Exactly. Well, I think the reason why the creators behind the show uh, decided not to have Satoru be with Kaio is because the Satoru's whole purpose after he saved her was to see her smile. I think in the show he specifically states this.
Yeah.
He wants to see her smile. He wants her to have finally have a happy life. And so when he wakes up from the coma, the reason I think the reason why, because there's this scene where she has the baby, right? And she shows the baby to Satoru. Satoru cries. And at first I thought, well, he's crying because that baby could have been him, right? That baby could have been him, and he could have been with her. But on the second,
I actually thought on the different way. He's crying because he's happy that his friend is happy, because obviously having a child.
Exactly, that's my point. I think that's why he cried, because he saw that.
I agree with you.
She smiled when she shows the baby. She's smiling. She's happy, and I think that's enough for him. I think that's what the creators wanted to say, is that yes, he didn't ended up being with her because the point was to save her life in the first place. He only fell in love afterwards, right? But the initial purpose was to save her, just save her life, and it's funny because
but like
same.
I would prefer him to end up with her. It's just like we see the whole story. He's creating a relationship and investing in a relationship with her, and then just ends like that. I'm like, wait, what? Like, what the hell?
It doesn't make sense.
I think. Oh, let me give you this. What if Kaio ended up with the guy that became a lawyer, the smart kid, the blonde smart kid?
Yeah.
Would you change your mind then? If he was the one who ended up with her?
Like, I think they had a little bit of relationship. Like, they actually talked.
Exactly, because he liked her.
And but
yeah, you like her. I remember.
Oh yeah.
But I still think that Satoru and Kaio would be like the best couple in the series, because that's what we see the whole series. We see him trying to protect her, her being nice with him, and starting like opening up to him, because she was also very shy and never talked with anyone, and she actually starts opening up to him, and in a certain way, Satoru changed Kaio's life, because obviously if Satoru never did that, the things he did for Kaio, she will never have her husband, even if she would survive, because she would never be able to open up to people as she was able to do with Satoru.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
that even like reinforced the fact that Satoru should have ended up with Kaio, in my opinion. Like I get that the author didn't want to, but I still, because like you said, like I completely agree with you. The point that Satoru wanted to make Kaio happy and just wanted to save her and make her smile. And eventually, because initially he wanted to save the girls that were killed, then he decided when he started developing the relationship with her, he actually wanted to make her happy. And in the end, she was happy. But I still think that it would be nicer for like you just think in the end, poor Satoru, like the guy just sacrificed himself for the girl, and the girl just didn't care.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I have to disagree. I think I have to disagree because I think that if he ended up being with Kaio, I think it would have taken away the sacrifice that he did. Because he didn't stay with her because that was the price to he sacrificed his life to pay. It was a life for another. And I think if he stayed with her at the end,
ready to die at the moment.
Exactly. But also I think the author did another thing because Satoru could have ended up alone, right? But the author was actually kind enough because it was foreshadowed for Satoru to be with the girl, the pizza girl that helped him in.
Ivy.
Exactly. So I think the author was pretty cool in this scenario. I think.
Yeah, but like I think that Irie is a little bit like in the shadow of Kaio because we don't see Satoru like creating that much of a relationship with her. He only talks with three girls in the series.
Mm-hmm.
His mother, well, I don't want to see that as a relationship, as a love.
Yeah, that will take the sweet nature of the story away.
Yeah, you can create your dojins, but keep that shit away from me, please. Then you have Kaio and Irie, and like the relationship he creates with Kaio is way more developed than the relationship with Irie, especially because like he spends way more time on screen with like in the past than in the future.
Maybe that's why it feels a little bit jarring. Maybe the execution
if we saw more in the present, maybe we would support Irie's relationship with Satoru because like Irie was actually a very interesting, like cool character, but Kaio's like we get to know her way better than Irie. So
although I mean she saved his life in the end.
For Satoru in the story, and like he was like, oh, I don't know how to talk with a girl. I'm gonna ask Irie, and Irie's gonna give me some tips. It was a little bit like that.
I'm glad this is not monetized. I really am. Yeah, go.
Okay, and just one thing that I would like to point out is that I don't know if you know, but there's actually a live-action Netflix series of Raised. Yeah, I don't know if it's good. I've heard some bad things, some good things, but just that I can't say anything. But yeah, I'll definitely watch it in the future. But yeah, just to point it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, live action movies, me and Simple Weeb talked about this, have not the best track record, but again, there are some few exceptions. I will say the Death Note movies, not the Netflix one. We just talked about that. The Japanese ones are not that bad, so.
Some that are not that Netflix. Oh, Dragon Ball Evolution. Oh, my dear Dragon Ball.
Oh no, Yeah, Spark is a huge fan of Dragon Ball, and he just every time we talk about Evolution, he gets pissed.
Oh god! Just by watching the trailer, Jesus Christ! Yeah. Why would I watch the movie when you can watch the trailer and just see that it's?
You just have to watch the movie. Once you watch the movie, you know how not to do a live action adaptation.
Oh god. Yeah.
I don't know why people still fail in live actions. It's just watch the movie and you'll understand how not to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Hopefully, this One Punch Man movie that Sony is gonna make is gonna be good. I think that
Well-
one has the best chances. I don't know if you have heard
Yeah,
about.
Sony. It's Sony. Like, come on.
No, they've done well. To be fair, they did Venom and Into the Spider-Verse, so they've been having a good
Yes.
streak.
And well, they did the originals, the Spider-Man. Like those were like the jams back in the day.
Yeah, man, Spider-Man 2 is still the best.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have to disagree on that. Yeah, sure.
Pizza Parker, the best
Oh,
fucking
Oh,
memes,
Peter Parker.
the
Oh,
best
time.
memes.
Oh my god.
Oh, yeah,
Is
yeah.
it right?
Old memes, old memes.
Yeah, good old times. Jesus, we're getting old,
Yeah.
and we're still
I remember
young.
watching the DVD. Man, I think I had the 3 DVDs.
I still have.
Yes, I think I still have them.
Yeah, me too. Well, the third
Although
one.
I don't even have like anything to read DVDs, only the computer.
Oh god.
So I can't even watch the movies on TV.
Yeah, actually, fun story. I mean, this has nothing to do with my personal opinion of the film, but the third one, Spider-Man 3, is actually destroyed. My brother, when he was younger, he destroyed the DVD. Yeah, man. This has nothing to do with my personal opinion of the film, by the way. All right? I know it's the
By
most
way,
divisive.
What's your personal opinion, by the way?
Yeah,
God, man. Either way, I know that. Well, maybe not. Maybe my subscribers don't care, but I'm sure some fucking hater is gonna pick one way or the other, is gonna screw my head with this. I like Spider-Man 3. I grew to appreciate it much more. When I was a kid, I loved it.
Okay, yeah.
But then I hated it, and then I liked it again. It's flawed, but it does have a lot of good things. I will defend that.
I agree.
Like I like it, but they tried to adapt way too many characters in that movie.
That's true. That's one of the big issues. They show that stay focused with the Green Goblin and maybe the Sandman. I think Venom there. You could have took him out.
Like 3 villains and then like one of them. Okay, let's not talk about it.
Yeah, probably not. Alright, so now we're gonna talk about Tokyo Ghoul. Finally, Tokyo Ghoul. I know there's some of you guys that have been checking the podcast so far, have been like, where is Tokyo Ghoul? We want Tokyo Ghoul. So finally we're gonna talk about Tokyo Ghoul. But because I put the timestamps in the link in the description below, if you didn't want to hear the rest of what we talk about, you probably have put here. You clicked here on this timestamp. But yeah, Tokyo Ghoul. This is a topic that I've been wanting to discuss here in the channel for a while now, and of course about the Tokyo Ghoul reboot. The anime that we got, the anime adaptation, has had its highs and lows. I think it's safe to say that it's pretty divisive. I've seen a lot of people who love it, including my subscribers who love it, who hate it. I've had my ups and downs with this show. I think you had too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
but this
there
is
are-
yeah.
I think the first season is really good. It was the one that like drew my attention and really kept me going. The second one was good, but like it could be better adapted, like especially the end. We all know, like everyone knows, like if you read the manga, you clearly know some things that are just not as good as it could be. I'll say.
You know that I love the ending of Rude. I do. And I wish that they continued on that route. with the Mirota's vision, which was the director of that of the first two seasons.
Yeah.
But I do agree the manga was more consistent when it came to the story that Rurei adapted. Um, and a part of me wants to see that side of the manga adapted properly and on screen. I do want to see that. I can already imagine how brutal the fight between Kaneki and Narima would look
Yeah.
in animation. That will be sweet. But talking about the reboot. So a lot of people have been calling this so far Tokyo Ghoul Brotherhood, like Full Metal Alchemist, because they want the Full Metal Alchemist treatment. If you don't know what I'm talking about, so with Full Metal Alchemist, the original version, we had what was it, 2009, I think, that it came
Yeah.
out. We had the version of the anime that surpassed the manga when it came to content. So not in quality, didn't surpass in quality necessarily, but it was ahead of the manga, right? In terms of story. And so they had to change the story instead of waiting. Because I think I think it was weekly,
They didn't know
the
the story
series.
would end.
Yeah. And
Basically, yeah.
And so, what Studio Bones, the studio behind Full Metal Alchemist, did was they waited, I think, 5 years, and they've adapted, not exactly like, not exactly like in the manga, uh, but more faithful to the manga, at least the ending or the second half of the story.
Yeah, because the first time they did it, they didn't know how the author would end the story.
Yeah, because the author, I think he wanted them to follow a different direction, so that's why he didn't tell them how it ended, and probably didn't know how he was gonna end it, right? Because I don't think they really think. Not all mangaka think how they're gonna necessarily finish their stories.
Yeah, I think like they kind of have an idea of how they want to start and introduce it, and like kind of what they want to end, and the things they want to the feelings that they want to pass on the people that are watching or reading, but they don't quite know how to get to that ending and how to like specifically do the ending. I think that's like how basically how every mangaka does their mangas. Like I'm gonna talk about One Piece because obviously, like for example, I think that Oda clearly knows how he's gonna end the story of One Piece. Like he has an idea. Obviously, he was not expecting to do a story that lasted 979 plus chapters.
Yeah.
He just started and kept going with a vision of what he wanted to for the end. Obviously, I have no doubt that throughout the story, as he was writing it, he changed how we wanted to do the ending, because that's just how it works.
Exactly. I mean, Suishida also didn't know exactly how he was going to end it. He wanted to end it with another tragedy, like he said, a complete train wreck for the characters, or at least for Kaneki's character in particular. But he decided to write an happy ending. So these things change throughout time, because authors change.
Yes.
And
because sometimes they're writing something and they want to do something this way, and then just the way the story went, he feels like the ending should be different. Just that.
Yeah. And so, going back to the topic at hand, I think we all as fans, whether we're part of the ones who loved the anime, hated the anime, or are just in the middle. I think both of us are in the middle. I think we all want.
I like both. I haven't read the Re yet, so.
I think we all as fans, we want to see a proper adaptation. Now, the question is, can it be made? Can it be made as we fans wanted, because it's difficult to adapt a manga exactly as it is, right? Because anime is a different format. We talked about this before, specifically in our previous podcast when we were talking about the live action movie. We talked that not everything translates properly to the different art form that they're adapting.
Yeah,
So, and
absolutely.
I think the manga, the Tokyo Ghoul manga, is a particularly a manga series that is very difficult to adapt.
Yeah,
And what I mean by that is,
yeah.
even if you extend the number of episodes, which I think we can agree was the problem,
One of the problems, like
was one of the
the
biggest
biggest problem,
problems,
for sure.
was the
Yes,
length. Yeah.
it was definitely one of the biggest problems of the story. Like it was obvious once, like the, we could see in like forums of people talking or in Reddit about Tokyo Ghoul when they announced that Tokyo Ghoul Re or Tokyo Ghoul Re season 2 or is only gonna have these much episodes. A lot of fans said, "Oh, this is clearly not enough for the amount of story and everything that they should adapt." So like before it even came out, a lot of fans already knew that this is not gonna work as well as it could.
Yeah, I
And one
remember
of the problems is clearly not episodes.
I remember when the final season was announced, at least the second part of the Tokyo Ghoul Re adaptation. And I was like, when they announced it was 12 episodes and I knew the number of chapters, I was like, I was already a little bit like,
Yeah,
okay.
it's not gonna work.
I mean, you've done that before, but not exactly like this. This is a little bit too much. um, but, and I mean, they wanted to rush the series. There were many reasons why, which we're not going to delve deep into because I think it's something. There's no point in beating around the. Once again, there were problems. They wanted to rush things. They wanted to finish the series because if they thought Tokyo Ghoul was an IP strong enough, they could sustain. They would have made many seasons with many episodes because Tokyo Ghoul is a large story. You can extend it as far as you want.
Yes.
But a thing that I'm not so sure of is even if a reboot is made and they extend the number of episodes, their Tokyo Ghoul has a lot of symbolism, a lot of foreshadowing, a lot of details, and I'm not so sure if you could adapt it exactly like in the manga because
Tokyo Ghoul is it is a really hard manga to adapt in every single format besides the manga. Like if you try to do a movie, it's gonna be hard to adapt because there are some things that are just hard to explain to people that haven't read the manga.
yeah, and Suishida's writing is again he's a very careful author. Yes, say what you will about the final arc, I have my issues as well, but for the most part the details and the Suishida's vision of the story, he was able to make it so consistent. And even if there is a great studio behind it, a great team, a great production value, I think they're gonna have a hard time to adapt it. I don't think Tokyo Ghoul is unadaptable. I think it's possible. Of course, it's possible to make a good. Just like I think it's possible to make a good adaptation of Berserk, which is another seinen that is super. I mean, not super popular for everyone, but for those who know Berserk, it's popular, right?
Yes, and it's a really good series. Like I haven't read like all, but I gave it like a little, just read some chapters, and I thought like it was a really good series, really well constructed series too.
And that series is super.
And once again, very badly adapted in my opinion, especially with that CGI, like the late adaptations.
Yeah.
The CGI is just terrible. But yeah, that's the problem with the animation. But even like itself, the series will be really hard to adapt, I would say.
Because stories such as those are so complex and massive, it's difficult. And you can't rush things. You can't rush schedules, and you need to have a team that is passionate about what they're doing, and a team, and also a team that knows the property well and loves the property. Because Mirota, the director of the two first seasons, he he had a vision, but it wasn't the same vision as Suishida had, clearly. So he understood a little bit of the story, but even the first season I find it's great. It's a great first season, but it's not a faithful of the adaptation of the manga yet. Uh, it gets close to the atmosphere, but it still isn't the same. Um, because the atmosphere in Tokyo Ghoul is very specific, you know, and that's something that uh, the team behind those two first seasons, even them, you can tell they didn't understand the story as Suishida understood it, of course, because he's the author of it. But I mean, it's not the same thing as, for example, with studios, right? The way that they approached Attack on Titan or Villain Saga, with you can tell that the team understood the story and what the author's vision was, and also the author had a very close, he had his hands on the property, not on the adaptation, not exactly, he wasn't supervising it all the time, but he had a say on it. Suishida had as well, but well, they ended up scrapping his a lot of his ideas for Rurei, so
that's one of the big difference. Like Attack on Titan, I know that the author of Attack on Titan really like gives some tips and like helps in the production of the anime. Even like put some things in the anime that he hasn't revealed in the manga yet, which is very interesting. And in Tokyo Ghoul, that doesn't happen at all. Like you said, they even denied some ideas that the author itself gave to the production team.
Because it was a clash of visions, right? Because the original team, had a vision, and Suishida had a different one, and they decided to. At least that's what I think it is. But also the studio had a lot of involvement as well. But yeah, man. Well, I've been looking. Seeing what kinds of studios could handle an adaptation if the anime changes, if the rights for the anime change to another studio. And so I want to ask you, man, of the studios that you know, of the anime that you've seen from them, which one do you think could handle this better?
Yeah, because that's also a really hard question. Yeah, like you have which studios made it Attack on Titan. I think that they will be like probably the most fit to the job, maybe, because well, Attack on Titan is kind of seinen too, and it's kind of dark, and they can, and like in Attack on Titan, they can also pass the feelings that the characters are having right now in the moment. So yeah, which studios I think will be a good choice. And well, there's one studio I really like, although they're like, I will say the anime they produce is kind of it has there is so a lot of people have bad opinions, and it's mainly shonen, but it's what A1 Pictures. Like A1 Pictures, I think they do a really good job in the animation. They did Sword Art Online. The animation of Sword Art Online is pretty good. The story, not so much. Fairy Tail, it's really good too. The story, I haven't watched it or read it, but there's a lot of people that say the story of Fairy Tail is also not so good. Okay, and you have Your Lie in April. Your Lie in April, it's good. It has a good story and a good
That is a
animation.
good example. That is a great example.
Let's go for the good examples instead of Sword Online. Oh my god. But yeah, Your Lie in April, it's a great anime, and it was made by A1. It was adapted by A1 Pictures. So like those three studios, I think they will be the most fit because like you have great studios, Kyoto Animation, but like Kyoto Animation makes anime like more, I'll say more heartwarming. I'll say you have a silent voice. I think they adapted silent voice. I'm not sure.
They did.
I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. I was already panicking. The fans were like, what the hell you said? Okay. Clanad, it's also a very heartwarming story, and
Yeah.
it was made by Kyoto Animations. So yeah, like I don't think they will be very fit to adapt Tokyo Ghoul, since Tokyo Ghoul is clearly not heartwarming. And well, Sunrise is a really good studio. They everything they do, it's good in general. So yeah, and yeah, like Studio Pierrot, they're responsible for for the seasons that came out. And I'm not sure if they could like. I don't know if they could do a good job. Like they did Naruto. Naruto, it's very known, not necessarily the greatest anime ever, but
It has
the
its
animation
ups
is
and
very
downs,
good.
right? It has its
Yeah.
ups and downs.
Filler.
There's a lot of filler because they decided to do it weekly, but I mean there's some incredible episodes. I will even say some of those episodes, specifically the fights, are even better than the manga. I think the final fight between Sasuke and Naruto is even better than in the manga. But on the flip side, you have a lot of episodes that the it's questionable the quality. So
Yeah, for the record, I haven't watched Naruto. I basically know the whole story. I even know the story of most fillers, just for your fans to know. Like,
yeah.
I haven't watched it, although I basically know the whole story. I even know what happens in the fillers. So I will say that I have like the right to say that the ending is kind of shit. You know, like what the hell was Kishimoto smoking at the time he was ending that? Just saying, like, where did he pull the Kaguya and all of that?
The aliens, man, the aliens. Oh god. But yeah, you could. I like Studio Pierrot as a studio. I don't hate Studio Pierrot. I think they weren't used to shonen, to seinen. I mean, series such as seinen.
Yeah, because they produce the most known shows is like Naruto, Bleach, and Yu Yu Hakusho, and those
Black
are
Clover,
all
the most
shonen.
recent.
No, Black Clover, yeah. And Black Clover, it's good. Like, okay, besides Asta Screaming, I myself, like, I'm a fan of Asta Screaming. Sorry, guys, maybe it's my bad taste, but I really like. It gets me hyped for the episodes. Maybe it's also because I started watching when it was like around episode 100, and so I watched it all like really fast. So yeah, I hate that shit, you know. So yeah, that's probably one of the reasons I don't mind Asta Screaming, and he actually gets me hyped when he starts screaming, Madada! Like okay, like I'll be honest, I like when he starts to scream Madada, just saying.
I mean,
like
I think
you that hype feeling, like yes, he's never gonna give up. He's never gonna give up. Like that very shonen feeling that when you watch shonen, that's the feeling you're trying to get. It's the hype.
Yeah.
And that.
I mean, it's like the manga. The manga is the same as well. So they're good at adapting the manga a lot of the times, but the problem is they do a lot of this series weekly, right? Tokyo Ghoul they
Yes.
didn't. They made it seasonal, but again, it was I think they saw it. They treated it as a shonen instead of a seinen,
Yeah.
and that was their biggest problem. Is that it's not a shonen.
It's a
Clearly,
seinen.
it became almost a
that-
shonen at the end. Even Sushi the
The
fucked
dragon.
up a little bit,
You
but
really hate that dragon arc.
it's a seinen still for the most part. But yeah, I think you pointed out great studios. I think which studios out of the ones that you talked about would be probably be the one, yeah, because they did a lot of they adapted a lot of
Or
dark
seinen
material.
line things.
Yeah, Attack on Titan. Attack on Titan is shonen, but it's closer to seinen than shonen a lot of times.
Yeah, if you read the manga, it's way closer to. I'm reading the manga right now.
Mhm.
Believe me, it's way closer to seinen than especially the last chapters. Like, I'm not gonna spoil, but yeah, like Aaron has some issues.
Some mental issues
He
like
has some
Kaneki.
body.
Villain Saga is I think is the seinen, the actual seinen out of the most popular series that they've made.
Yeah,
The true seinen,
and
which
a great seinen.
and actually it's a series that is close to Tokyo Ghoul as well when it comes to drastic character development
yeah.
and mentalities and psychology. I think yeah.
Yeah, we have to talk about Villain Saga eventually, like, because it's a really great show.
It's a
Like,
really great show.
now
Yeah.
that you talked about it, man, just amazing. If you guys haven't watched Vinland Saga, you should, because like it's definitely on my top 5 of best anime last year. Because man, Vinland Saga, whew,
And the art style
dare
from
say that it was probably the best anime from last year.
and the art
I'll
style
just drop
from
this moment, leave.
and the art style of the manga. If you haven't checked the manga out, oh my
No, I
god,
haven't.
man,
Actually, I haven't,
it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. I really,
because I
really enjoy
haven't
the art
found
style.
it yet. I was searching on the internet, I can't find the Vinland Saga manga. Maybe
Yeah.
you can link me.
Yeah, I'll
Some
do
good
that for you. I'll do that for you. If there are some of you guys who want some links, I can help you. So I think the only issue with Wit Studios is I'm not a I'm not that big of a fan of how I mean Villain Saga has handled it well, and the first season of Attack on Titan, I think they handled it really well. But the problem was how they handle it in the next seasons is the CGI. I think sometimes the CGI is pretty noticeable, and I think a series like Tokyo Ghoul they could very easily use CGI for a lot of the Kagune and the Quinks and that whole action. And I don't know if Wit Studios could pull that out. To be honest, I think they could nail the faithfulness of the story, but I don't know. I don't think the animation would be 100% consistent. You know, I love the anime of Attack on Titan. I love the anime of Villain Saga, but a lot of the episodes, even though it's seasonal, the you can see the clear difference between quality, right? The quality ratio. You mentioned, for example, A1 pictures. You mentioned Your Lie in April. I think I didn't even remember Your Lie in April in this situation with A1, but Your Lie in April, the quality of the animation is off
It's
the
really
charts. It's beautiful.
And like when the characters are playing, like I remember seeing all those like the way they passed the feelings when while the characters were playing was really well made.
Yeah.
So I think they could do a good job like passing the feeling of despair that Kaneki sometimes feels throughout the story and all the characters feel, because a lot of characters feel like that feeling of despair throughout
Yeah.
the series.
That's one thing that I've noticed almost immediately watching Your Lie in April is that a lot of its story and characters and character development is very similar to Tokyo Ghoul. I mean, those scenes where you have our main protagonist, which I'm not remembering the goddamn name. I knew his name.
Yeah, don't ask me.
Yeah, but let's
know.
not waste too much time on that. I love his character, and a lot of he had a lot of moments throughout the story where there is a certain character which I don't want to spoil that it was very precious to him
Close.
or close to him, and he sees that character's ghost, not literal ghost, but his vision of that person, and
Yeah.
it reminded me so much of Tokyo Ghoul, and the sensibilities of the way that they adapted that story and how they were able to get the
Yeah,
sensibilities
I'm
of
imagining the scene right now.
yeah, man.
I'm imagining a really good scene right now.
I think
Yeah.
I think they could get pretty close, but still, I think
Which studios will be more?
I don't know, man, because I've seen a lot of fans point out UFO Table, that of course did Demon Slayer and
Yeah.
the Fate series. Well,
Well,
man,
it's kind of obvious they will point that. Like Demon Slayer just went viral last year.
but the animation was just incredible.
Yeah, because of mainly because of, like I would say, and I'm pretty sure this is gonna hit me back so much because like Demon Slayer's story it's actually not that good. Like it's good, but it's your typical shonen, and the animation
It's a
was
classic
what
shonen.
like made it. What?
It's a classic shonen.
Yeah, and like the animation was what it like.
Yeah, it was
Made
the
it
animation
really
was
stood
what made it explode. But I still think
Episode
Ufotable
19,
could.
right? Episode 19.
I think
Everyone
Ufotable
was
still could make a good adaptation, story wise, of it.
yes.
Because they were pretty faithful with not just Demon Slayer but the Fate series. I think they adapted it very faithfully.
Yeah. Like I don't know if you know, I'm reading the Demon Slayer manga. Sword, what the hell? I'm reading the Demon Slayer manga, and like it's actually like in the anime they made like way more like the action scenes are way more developed than in the manga. Like it's amazing. Like they did a really good job. I cannot deny it. Although I would say like I like it, but I wouldn't say it's the best from last year, like a lot of people said. But like it was one of the best. Like Demon Slayer was a really good job made by the production was really good. I cannot deny that.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why I think Ufotable will be a good choice, besides the animation and all those things, is I mentioned the CGI. I think Ufotable handles CGI much better than Wit Studios. I think they are the ones who do it the best. You know, it's almost seamless. You know, you look at it and you sometimes you see the CGI, but a lot of times they blend the 2D animation with the 3D animation so well, you know.
It's so smooth.
And it's consistent, right? Because season 3 of Attack on Titan had that scene with Levi, that action scene with Levi that was fucking phenomenal. But that was
Yeah.
I mean, that's not regularly, right? You don't see that.
I remember this.
But it's you don't see it as consistently as with Ufotable.
That scene only, basically, like that was the great scene. They spend a lot of money on that scene.
Yeah,
that's it.
And that's it exactly. And also
in Demon Slayer, for example, like we were talking about how good Demon Slayer is, like yeah, like throughout the whole series, the animation was smooth and really, really good. Like there's basically no flaws in Demon Slayer animation.
Yes,
I'm not gonna lie.
Yes,
that's why it was considered one of the best animes from the last decade. Oh my god, controversial.
But I think the reason why Ufotable, I don't think Ufotable would pick a series like Tokyo Ghoul anytime soon is they're because what they do is they focus on one particular series and they don't really work on anything else. They want to give their all, their passion, their attention to just one specific series. And Demon Slayer, it's not a massive series when it comes to length because
No, I think it's about to end, actually.
yeah, that's what I was gonna
Like
say. I think it's
200
about to end. It's 100 something chapters, if I'm not wrong.
No, isn't 200, I think. Let me
But
just...
beginning of the 200 mark, right?
Yeah. Okay. Beginning up to 200, yeah.
But still, it's a large.
It's really small, actually.
It's still a big series, but it's smaller than your usual shonen. But I do think that
So,
yeah,
if I'm used to 979 episodes,
yes,
chapters.
there's some,
Sorry.
and it's seasonal, right? It's one of those shonens that it's doing things seasonal. But I think that they're still gonna spend a couple of years working on it. So I don't.
Yeah, 205. Just
Even if time passes on, I don't know if Tokyo Ghoul will be their next project. You know, will be a project that they will go right away into adapting, right? Because it took them a long time to adapt something.
especially because say
To adapt a manga, right? Because they used to adapt games and Fate. The Fate series is based on a game and light novels, and the God Eater anime was as well a game. Demon Slayer is the first manga series that they've adapted, so you know I don't know if Tokyo Ghoul will be their a story, a project that they will be interested in adapting right away.
And I think also because Tokyo Ghoul was already made, and so if they grab Tokyo Ghoul and try to do something with Tokyo Ghoul, they have to do something better, because if they don't, then that will like hurt their reputation.
Yes.
Like Tokyo Ghoul is known as not having the best adaptation, and if they do something worse, like their reputation will go downhill for sure.
Yeah, because they're all about maintaining
that
quality.
Be very careful with that too, because if they're gonna do if they did an adaptation, I think they will probably be able to do a better one. But it's always a risk to do it, because if they don't do something better, their reputation is screwed.
Yeah, and
we talked have the hate of all of the
of all of the fans. I think, you know, we talked a lot about the action and all that, but now I wanted to get to the story, because I mean I've famously bashed the game, the Call to Exist game, because it lacked story. It was more action based. So even when it comes to the story, I think like a studio like Ufotable with studios, or even A1, will do a pretty good job. But I do have a preference when it comes to studios. My favorite studio actually is Bones. I love their adaptation of both versions of FMA, Full Metal Alchemist.
I knew you were gonna say that.
I really like the My Hero Academia adaptation. I love the Mob Psycho adaptations.
Yeah.
But I don't think like Kyoto Animation. I don't think they will necessarily adapt a story like Tokyo Ghoul. I don't know if they're comfortable in adapting such a dark story. You know,
it's not in their standards.
FMA is dark, but it's still a shonen at the end of the day. And
I don't think you understood my memeing. I just made fun of animation for not saying that Shizuka Reviewers is not on their standards. But yeah.
Yeah, right? Isn't it weird?
But yeah, it's like those Tokyo Ghoul is not in their standards. Like, but technically, like if you, it's kind of that, because it's not something they're used to.
Yeah.
They are not used to do such a dark and they're not used to do something like Tokyo Ghoul. Tokyo Ghoul has to like that if they do an adaptation, it has to be something from a studio that has some experience with dark stories, and Bones is not one of those studios, in my opinion.
Yes. But I actually have a preference for a couple of studios that I think they could, or at least it depends on the team, right? The team behind it as well.
Yeah.
And of course the schedules that they give the team to work on this. But I'm actually a big supporter of Toei Animation. Just kidding, just kidding, just kidding. No, seriously.
Yes, Toei Animation will do a great job.
They do the best anime adaptations. Um, I have fond memories of Dragon Ball Z, but I do think a Shaft or a production IG would nail an adaptation. Uh, Again, the right team behind it, and I think more so Production IG. Production IG is all about anime, um, about cops and serial killers, and I think Tokyo Ghoul has some of those aspects that I think they will be drawn to. I mean, Psychopaths is one of their most famous anime adaptation. Not an adaptation, I don't think so, but one of their most famous anime. And I mean, I could see them doing a good job with Tokyo Ghoul on that front.
Psychopaths is also like a little bit dark.
Yes, they can also nail the darkness. I mean, they did the Ghost in the Shell standalone complex anime series, which I haven't seen all of it. I've seen a little bit. Of course, I'm a fan, a huge fan of the film, but the animation in there and the darkness of the story and the philosophy, they nailed it. They do a good job with those kinds of sensibilities and subtleties. And Shaft, I also think it's a good one because of the Monogatari series. Uh, they nailed the Monogatari series adaptation.
Yeah.
And take in account the light novel was the first. It is the original source material. It's a light novel, and a lot of them, I think when the manga came out, it was after the anime adaptation. But I mean, they had to come up with the visuals and the characters. The character designs not so much, but a lot of the visuals and the backgrounds and the way they had to adapt the fast paced dialogue and all of the details and nuances that are so difficult to adapt. Um, because just like Suishida, the writing in the Monogatari series uh, is so rich and full of detail, and it's like they nailed it. They made such a great adaptation, and it was even harder because they didn't have visuals to use, right? They had to make it from scratch, and I could definitely see them doing an incredible job with Tokyo Ghoul. But yeah, it depends on the studio. It depends on the team.
The team working.
It depends on the amount of money they put in it. But I think, and I also would love to, if there is a studio, a new studio that makes an adaptation, a new adaptation of the manga, I will love if they also changed the style. Uh, the original Reach changed the style, but it still wasn't like the original style. Suishida's art style um, is specific to his zone, and I think they could make work well with his specific art style. Because one of the things that I noticed watching, especially the first two seasons, is it's that classical that classic look to anime, right? It doesn't have an art style that it's different from everything else. Suishida's art style and the character designs, the way that he draws Kaneki, they're very Japanese. I mean, it's called Tokyo Ghoul. It's set on Japan, and it's set in Tokyo, and it's like Suishida's characters look more Japanese than the anime, you know. And I would love them if they could make it look similar to that, you know. I think
Yeah.
stylistically it will be, again, it will make it different because Suishida's art style is different from other authors. It may not be, you know, as unusual as a One Piece, but it's still unique to him, you know. And you look at his art style, and you immediately can tell that that's Suishida's art style. It's very rough, and and the lines are very are drawn with such emotion and a rawness to it. And I mean, I think that it will look great um, animated. So yeah, that's I think that's another thing to take in account besides the story and the symbolism. And of course, I would love to see the finale, the finale of Re, um, properly adapt, because I liked how they adapted it, but because they had to be consistent with the first season, because in the first season, that famous line from the manga that Kaneki states, "My life will be a tragedy," it's not there. They took it
Yeah.
out, and because of that, they couldn't. With the final episode of Re, they couldn't use the same use the line that they use in the manga that Suishida uses in the manga, which is Kaneki talking with Rize and stating, um, "My life is not only it's not the only tragedy there is. You know, many other characters, their lives are also tragedies. You know, they're also the protagonists of their own stories, with their own tragic lives and experiences." And I love that line. I love that line, and also I think there was a line by Hide when Kaneki fights Arima and he just is on that suicidal mode, and Hide tells him, "No matter how hard things get, live." I don't think that phrase was exactly there. You know, phrases such as those are fucking awesome. You know, I would
Yeah.
love to hear Kaneki, the voice actor of Kaneki, say that shit. You know, it's awesome, man. And also there were details of the that the anime didn't took in account. For example, Kaneki when he lies, um, he puts his hand on his chin, um,
Mhm.
covering his chin,
Yes.
and they used that in Route A, but then they completely forgot about it in Re, because if you read the Re manga, Kaneki, the reason why you can tell Heise as a character that Kaneki is still alive inside of Heise is Heise still not just reads still reads books, but he has that same habit that Kaneki has. And it's stuff like those that I think a lot of the fans of the manga were so
Wanted.
disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The small details that made the story better.
that's what makes
They were not adapted.
Tokyo Ghoul different. It's those details. It's
Yeah.
exactly that. And um, but also, to finish this off, I wanted to talk to you about something, which is a lot of people want to reboot, right? I'm optimistic, but at the same time, I'm a little bit pessimistic because maybe it will take 5 years. I think 5 years is a good enough time to be like, um, you know, if we don't hear anything about a reboot in 5 years, I think we should be concerned because we don't know if Studio Pierrot is gonna retain the rights or not.
Yeah.
And if Studio Pierrot retains the rights, there's two ways I could see them doing this. The first one is they try it again. They try to do it again, and I don't know if they'll nail it, you know?
Well, maybe they should. They did it once, so and they should know what they did wrong. So
But that's the issue,
maybe,
right?
yes,
Rude,
maybe they could.
yeah,
Yeah, like
they
I don't know.
they did the same thing with Rude, right? They made mistakes and they still messed it up with Re, and it's like,
Yeah,
again,
that's true.
will they do better? That's the big question mark. And the other thing is,
If they learn from their mistakes, the series will be amazing. But sometimes it's hard to learn from your mistakes.
and also it was a project that not only they didn't understand, they wanted to move on from, right? They wanted to focus again on the more popular series such as Black Clover, such as Naruto, such as Boruto, the classic shonens, right? The ones that have a bigger audience.
That give them money. Let's be
So
honest, like
they need
how
the
much-
money. They need the money. It's true.
how many like not only like streaming in merchandise and all of that. How much do you think they will earn from Naruto and Black Clover, and how much do you think they earn from Tokyo Ghoul? Like Tokyo Ghoul figurines are awesome and all the merchandise is awesome, but like
It's not the
let's
same.
compare the amount of people that watch Naruto, or like everyone watch Naruto. Let's be honest. Like, but yeah, Naruto sells way more and Black Clover sells way more than Tokyo Ghoul, especially
Yeah.
because Naruto and Tokyo and Black Clover are series that can go to the TV and children and more children can watch it and all of that. Yeah, like once you arrived home from school, you had Yu-Gi-Oh and Dragon Ball and the other American cartoons. Those were like the ones you had most. Then later in night you had Naruto and One Piece, and I think Yu Yu Hakusho also. I don't remember if it was adapted.
It wasn't so.
You had Samurai X. You had that one.
Sailor Moon. Sailor
That's
Moon was
a little-
another one.
Yeah, Sailor Moon. That one was like at midnight. That one streamed like
Yeah.
at midnight or 2 a.m. I remember that. Like the good old days when I went to like family dinners and
Yeah.
I left the table and went to watch anime and I didn't even know what anime was it.
Yeah,
So-
it looked the same.
Right.
Yeah. But the second thing that I think that we must take in consideration is if Studio Pierrot doesn't distribute the rights to someone else, to another studio, we could see a scenario where they may not touch Tokyo Ghoul again.
Yeah.
That may be it. And I don't think any fan wants that, to be honest, but it's a possibility. That's why I
Yeah.
say if you don't hear anything in
In 5
5
years.
years, maybe. Well, yeah, because Fruits Basket and Full Metal Alchemist, it took more or less that time. I think the only one that probably took longer was Sailor Moon, because Sailor Moon had a reboot. But still, I mean, if it takes too long, then I think we could see a scenario where
There's
I-
no time.
there's no Tokyo Ghoul anymore, at least anime.
Yeah. It's very likely actually. Like I don't know. People are doing petitions, maybe it will happen. But like if Piero doesn't let it go, we might actually end up having something that it's not like what the fans want. You know.
Yeah.
So what is it better? Like get something that we don't want, or actually just don't get nothing at all? It's basically the same if you see it that way. So yeah, I really don't know. Maybe we'll get an adaptation, a new adaptation. But I don't-
Release the Miroto cut. Release the Rurei continuation. That's what we want. Please. I would love to see a continuation of
Just
Rurei.
do what?
Come on, just do it. Yes, you can. Yesterday you said tomorrow, so just do it. One of the best memes.
Yeah.
Man. So yeah, I think we talked about a lot. Actually, this was a subject matter I wanted to talk about for the longest time. I'm glad that we could talk about it. Spark didn't talk about this, participate because he hasn't seen Tokyo Ghoul yet. Shame on him. We're fixing that. We're trying to fix that. but
Yeah.
but yeah.
We'll make him watch, even if torture is needed.
But he's gonna talk in the next subject, so just wait a little bit. So yeah.
Yeah, he actually really like to do this with us. So yeah, you already know my opinion. I really like. So if you want me back, I'll always come back.
Exactly. So let's get to the next topic, shall we? Which is this is something that I've been wondering for the longest time, which is why aren't there more or any really good quality horror anime? And this is something that's been bogging my mind for so long. I can't understand why. Is it because of the fucking isekais? We just see isekais everywhere now instead of other genres.
Yeah, every seasonal anime has at least like 3-4 isekais at least, and if you were lucky or unlucky, depends on.
Well, most of the times unlucky, I should say. But you know, I can there have been some shows that are not necessarily horror but have elements of horror, like Angels of Death.
Yeah,
but
I really liked Angels of Death. I actually liked the anime a lot. That anime, although a lot of people say it's not that good, I like it as I saw it. Now that I saw it once more, I can see why people say it, because it's not that good, but I really like it.
I think it's fine. I think it's reasonable. But not just about quality, but I think in quantity. We've had Angels of Death, a couple of other ones here and there, but not that many.
The thing is, one is considered like a horror anime, really, because you could consider Yokoso the Neverland a horror anime, technically.
Yeah, I can see your point, but it does have horror, but
technically it isn't, and technically it is. So
I would say that's more psychological. You could say psychological horror, but I think it's more of a thriller than horror.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
It's like Tokyo Ghoul, for example. It has elements of horror, but it's more
not horror.
It's more psychological, right? Yeah. And Re, it's a completely different beast. There's no horror there at all. So, but the original Tokyo Ghoul, there's some horror elements to it, but I would say it's more, instead of psychological horror, I think it's more psychological. But yeah, what?
You have the zombie stuff, like High School of the Dead and all of that zombie stuff that technically is horror, but it doesn't scare anyone. One of the things I think one of the biggest problem is because a lot of people associate anime with no terror, because drawings are not as scary as actual flesh. And I'm gonna pull one of my favorite horror movies here, Saw. When you see all that flesh, all that blood, you can relate way more than if you saw a drawing of all that flesh and all of that blood. It doesn't impact you and affect you as much as actual makeup, because obviously they didn't cut someone's head and screw someone's brain, obviously.
Well, it's about the practical effects, right? It's also a big draw to something such as Saw. With anime, it's you have to exaggerate a bit, right? You have a lot of blood, an unreasonable amount of blood dropping out of the floor, and maybe it doesn't feel as impactful because it's just too much. It's too much on your face. It's one of the reasons why there's this anime called Alone, which is one of the most well-known horror shows. I really like that show, and I've read the manga, and I absolutely love the manga. But they, at least the anime, they over exaggerated the quantity of gore and blood, and the element that I loved about the show was the psychological nature of it, which the manga kept all the way to the end. And with the anime, they decided to go more on the gore aspect of it, and it's, at least to me, I've always preferred more the psychological horror, and so I
Yeah.
relate much more with that.
You also have Berserk that technically is horror, and it's really good. I don't know if you have heard of Berserk, but
Yeah, it has elements of
probably
horror,
did.
but it has elements of horror, but even that, I think, I don't know
It's
if you
not
can
quite
consider. Yeah,
horror. It's just because it has demons and like monsters and all that. But it is a little bit horror.
I, th- I think it's just such a wasted opportunity that they don't explore more horror in
The horror.
anime, because there's so many
Yeah.
incredible manga out there, horror manga, like Junji Ito's manga,
Yeah.
that, I mean,
I-
I would love to
I
see
knew
them
you were gonna
adapted.
talk about it.
But maybe it's because manga, it's a specific medium that uses horror better. For example, if you're translating to anime, it's not the same thing, because I know they did an adaptation of Junji Ito's work to anime format, but it didn't really work. It wasn't the same thing, because a lot of for example, there's the famous page turn in manga, where you use the flipping of a page to make a jump scare, or have this terrifying image that sinks into your
To
mind.
shock the reader.
And the
Yeah.
Promised Neverland did that, but it's much more
Promised
effective in
Neverland
manga.
didn't do that. Was in the manga. I don't know if you ever compared like the jump scare or the shock
Yeah.
when we know what is going on in the farm. Like in the manga, it's 3 panels. Like it's really quick. And in the anime, it's almost like 3 seconds. They dragged a little bit the scene.
Yeah, I
But
absolutely
it
agree.
was very impactful anyway. But not as impactful as in the manga, in my opinion.
Yeah. And that's why I would argue that I think instead of doing what they've did, and maybe that's why they don't make as many of them as anymore. They've, creators behind anime, horror anime, they've always made more of a gore fest, right? Than the
Yeah.
psychological element.
Corpse Party.
And I think,
Corpse Party is like
yeah,
gore as hell.
I think the best horror that comes from Japan is the psychological one. I mean, some of the greatest games, horror games, come from Japan. Silent Hills looked, before they canceled it, it looked terrifying, and I'm like, why can't we see an anime like that? Why can't we have more psychological horror anime?
Yeah.
It's just something I'm really
Talking about,
missing.
like,
Yeah.
one anime I really enjoy, like I haven't watched all of them, but they're really good, and I've checked some. It's the Yamishiwa. I don't know if you know it.
Yes, I've seen
But
the
it's like-
fifth one, I think. The fifth season.
Yeah, but like those are really good. Like it's small tales of Japanese horror stories, and there are actually real stories that are told in Japan, and
Yeah.
they're really good because you get to know more of the Japanese culture, and well, have a very horrifying story at the same time.
Yeah, because they have very cool urban
Tales.
legends, right?
Yeah,
And I think that's something from their tradition that they could explore more, rather than, for example, there are a lot of animes that take from that mythology, right? That tradition. I remember there was an episode of Mob Psycho 100, the second season, where the second episode is more horror centric, because they use some urban legends specific from Japan, but that's not a horror show. And it was one
Yeah.
of my
But
favorite
yeah,
episodes
Mishiba,
because of that
is
reason.
a horror show.
Yeah. And I think they showed, that is a great show. The one with the short stories, the horror short stories, but
Yeah.
they're very small. I would like to see a full-fledged story with that.
Yeah, that's true.
So
like,
yeah.
I was thinking of something. It's not the Amishibai. It's Dororo. Dororo. I think you. Yeah. I think you have even made a video about Dororo.
Yes,
sure.
I did way back. Yeah.
Like Dororo is also based on. It's not horror, but it's also based on the tales and stories of Japanese culture. The demons are actual demons that Japanese culture believed in, and that's really cool. And I decided it will be good to just give it a quick shout out, because
It deserves it, definitely.
It's technically not a horror movie or anime. It's like they have a lot of tales of horror creatures, Japanese horror creatures.
So Spark, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would just like to add something like, as they've said, there are really good Japanese games, Japanese horror games, and I think Japan has a lot of potential here in this genre. Like there are really well-known games like Resident Evil 2 Remake. That's a Japanese horror game, like Silent Hills. For example, the Evil Within series. Also, Resident Evil 7. That's the Japanese one. And also a not so famous game, but there's also the Zero Escape series. There's a lot of Japanese games, and I think Japan has a really a lot of potential here in this genre, and I would really enjoy if they would explore more this genre.
Wouldn't it be cool to have a Silent Hill anime show?
Exactly.
Wouldn't it be awesome? It will be so great. So, guys, I
want to refer something for your more hardcore fans. I know there's a lot of horror anime, but most of them are really outdated and didn't age really well, the animation. I just wanted to point that out, because there are some old good horror anime, but most of them are or you can find it on the internet, or are really are not very compared with the animation today. Obviously, they're not as good.
Yeah, so
just wanted to point that out.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's a good transition to a question that I wanted to ask you guys, which is, right now, taking that aside of, there are older anime which the animation doesn't hold up and things like that, why do you think there's not as much horror anime as it used to be? Why do you think that is?
Because there's not as many people that want to watch it, in my opinion. It's probably because they're with isekai. Why is isekai growing so much? Because everyone is consuming isekai, and so it's something that everyone is watching. So the studios will be like, well, I want to earn money, so let's do it. And with horror anime, there's not as much. There's not as many people that like horror.
Exactly. That also translates into movies or into games. Horror is not an.
It's very niche.
It isn't an easy genre to do. It isn't horror is not that easy. A good horror movie, it's hard to do. A good horror game, it's hard to do. It isn't just jump scares that make a good game, a good movie, a good anime. It has to have a really good story, and not everyone enjoys it. And the genre isn't people are really divided in this genre. I think horror. I think in the West.
I think in the West, horror has been growing a lot more. Um,
Yeah, that can be true. Yeah.
and even there have been many movies that have there's still many movies that still rely on jump scares, still rely on the same tropes, but there are also a lot of other ones that have revolutionized the genre. And I think, audiences, you know unless, there are superhero movies that really bring a lot of people in to theaters, but I think horror has to be the other genre that is bringing a lot of people to the theater because they love that experience, um, at least in the past couple of years. And that's why, to me, it's a little bit like, why does an anime try to do the same thing? Instead of relying on the whole jump scare fest, try something different, because Japan, like you guys pointed out, it's they're really good at psychological horror. They're really good at new ideas and creative ideas in the horror genre. And so why can't they do the same thing as here in the West? They're doing so successfully,
Yeah.
Exactly. I think the horror genre isn't like not everyone enjoys it because they see horror and they immediately just don't even try to get into the movie because for you to enjoy the horror movie you have to almost be connected to the movie, because if you aren't connected, you won't feel like the adrenaline like that the movie gives you or the game gives you. Because if you are playing a horror game and if you aren't really connected to the game, you won't enjoy it. And horror requires for you to be connected, requires for you to be focused, and that's what gives you the best experience. Like to feel the jump scares, to feel the adrenaline, to feel like everything, and that's what makes, in my opinion, horror so great. Like it gives a different type of feeling that the other genres don't usually give.
Yeah, the key is atmosphere, right? Atmosphere
exactly.
it's all about the atmosphere. If you don't get it right,
Without a doubt.
you don't succeed with horror.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, guys. I want you guys to pitch me that a type of horror anime that you want to see. What kind of horror anime you would want to jumpstart a new age of shows, like Isekai did, for example. What kind, besides, of course, we talked about psychological horror, but besides that, what kind type of story, of a horror story, would you like to see? Or would you like to see gore, still have the gore there, as it always been? So what do you guys think?
I think that the gore doesn't work as well in anime, but it's really hard because, for example, I really like the Yami, the typical the traditional Japanese horror stories, like the ones like I talked before.
Yeah.
That talk about tales, Japanese tales, because that way we can know more about the Japanese culture that I would suppose that we like because we're watching anime. So I think we're kind of interested in the Japanese culture. Of course, at least I am. And not only that, we can have a good horror story about the tales and monsters that Japanese people believed back in the day. But besides that, I can't really say horror stories. I don't want them. Definitely don't want them to be as gory as they are. But at least I just want them to be good. The definition of a good horror story is kind of hard to say. So kind of hard to explain.
Yeah.
And it's very subjective too.
Spark?
So I don't know.
Yeah. in my opinion, I would like to see like the real full potential of Japan. Like the psychological horror always like excited me, and I always enjoyed to play horror games, to especially the psychological ones. And I think Japan has a really a lot of potential in that subgenre of horror, and I would like to see more of that. I would like to see more of psychological or anime, um, just to maybe like promote the genre. I would like to for for Japan to do more to so people could see like their real qualities. What what are they able to do? Like I would like to see especially especially psychological horror anime, but gore is also good. Like they could make more anime of that, but yeah, psychological really, yeah, my favorite. Like
Yeah, just don't make slasher movies.
yeah.
There are
We
good
already-
ones. Come
we
on,
already
man.
have a lot of them.
There are good ones though. I would like to see a Friday the 13th reboot again,
Oh god.
or a Nightmare on Elm Street,
That would be
please.
insane. That would be insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Nightmare on Elm
Just
Street is really
one-
good.
Okay, or maybe like Insidious or Conjuring. Like imagine like Insidious that has like different dimensions.
That will,
Imagine
yeah,
seeing
that will be cool. I mean, we should find an animator and do this ourselves. No, maybe we
I
can
should
get
do it
some money out
myself.
of this.
Like who was the Insidious like director? Wasn't it a Japanese guy or something?
Yes, it was James Wan, the one from
Yeah,
Saw
James Wan,
and
exactly.
Conjuring.
Yeah, James Wan. So that's one more reason for Japan to do something nice like that. Yeah, that would be so cool and would move so much people, like so many people, like into the horror genre, especially in anime. Like that would be insane. That
Yeah.
would be insane because Insidious is quite a well-known horror movie, and I think it's considered like the king of horror, maybe, or I don't know. But James Wan is the well-known director, so he could move a lot of people.
Yeah, we need a James Wan and a Junji Ito for anime, for sure.
Exactly.
So yeah, so
Exactly. That would be
well, I guess we reached the end of the video here. Thank you guys for watching the podcast. So Spark, Simple Weeb, thank you for coming. Thank you very much.
My
Um,
friend.
It's a pleasure.
Always a
and
pleasure to work with you.
and of course, you guys can find both these guys' channels if you want to. Links will be in the description below. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well, and of course, with this whole pandemic, hopefully you guys can, survive all of this. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. See you guys.